And
What?
I made you co-host.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And it's getting on YouTube. It should be on in a minute. Okay, yep, we are all set
No,
on
that's not this
YouTube.
password. Oh, what is this password?
We are ready
That's
whenever
not the
you guys
password, huh?
are.
Oh, that's fine.
Scott, did you get my text?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. It is, what is today? Monday, January 21st. It is 6:30. January 12th? It's still the 12th? Okay. It is Monday, January 12th. We'll edit that out of post-production. It's the 6:30 p.m. This is the Berlin Select Board meeting. I think we'll just jump right into things. I called the meeting. Oh, no, I have to say this thing too. Sorry, I'm a little about that.
That's a long one.
We don't have the one.
Isn't it there?
It's not here. This
Oh,
is
I
an
moved it
open,
over
this
here.
is an open public meeting. Those people present and online, you say something, or even if you're in the room, your voice, your likeness, will be recorded, for posterity. Is that close enough?
Close
Sounds
That's a
enough.
good.
plus. We'll start with presentations. We have a last minute agenda item that was added, to look at the town maintenance special article and spending some money out of it to, outfit a vehicle.
Yes, and I'd like to ask if Chief McClellan could come forward. This is the police vehicle that PD had set aside for us to use as an inspectional services / general town vehicle. And it does need a bit of maintenance, and there's a couple of interesting nuances to what it can be used for, but it does have to be stripped as a police vehicle. So I will let the chief speak to that.
Yeah, looking at that vehicle, it's obviously right now it's marked as a police car. So that's one of the things we'd have to remove from it is just the lettering that makes it that. And the interior of the car, when it was originally stripped, there was a lot of stuff that was taken out for the radios, the center console. They had emergency lights on it that they kind of stripped off of it, with the intent of not putting anything in place for it. So we had our vendor kind of take a look at it to say, what would it look like in order to use that vehicle kind of as an all-purpose vehicle? So if inspectional services wanted to use it, or assessing, or somebody else, and it had some amber lights on it. So if they were in the roadway, they could utilize those to avoid getting hit. So somebody recognizes that as just being a town vehicle. And also if in the event that we needed to use the car for, like when the tornado came through town, if we needed another staff vehicle in order to put out there to warn people or to, close a road, we can put some blue and red lights on there. And all told, I think it was about $2,800 just for the lights to be put on the vehicle. And inside the vehicle where the console was, there's a big hole that goes down to where the transmission is and kind of in behind the dashboard. That would kind of seal that up. They would put in another console that just kind of covers that up. So there's no hole there. And that the dashboard is a solid unit and with everything in place where it needs to be. The lights on the outside, they would take the push bumper off the vehicle because it can't be on there anymore. And I think that all came to about $2,800, and it was another $300 just to remove the lettering on the vehicle. And I'm not sure if that's just to remove the word police on the side and leave town of Berlin there, or if it's to remove everything and just put like a town seal on the side of the door. But that was kind of the intent behind it. That way, it's a vehicle that anybody in town, if the town administrator needed to use it for official business, or it was needed to be used to go to a class that Maya was holding for somebody, it's a vehicle that could be used by any employee in the town.
And I think there's advantages to this, whether or not we go regional on the inspectional services. As Chief mentioned, it's for town right now. We do pay out some mileage. That would avoid us having to do those types of things, and the officialness to it when the assessor pulls up outside of somebody's house to do an inspection, I think is good. I also think about the tornado when I parked my car in the woods after getting yelled at by the police to stop advancing because they didn't know it was me. If I could have jumped in an official vehicle, had that been state police or somebody else, that would have been problematic for me to be able to get to where I needed to be. That is the thought there, is in getting it ready, save us some money on the mileage and, allow general staff use as well, or emergency use if need be with the lights.
And we'll probably, and my guess is we're gonna have a few other expenses that go with that once we get the vehicle ready that we just got it registered with license plates so it can be on the road. We will need to bring it in just to the for some mechanical stuff just to get it looked at because it's been sitting for a while. There's a lot of indicators on right now, but I think that's just because it's been sitting there. The battery died. We had to jump it to get it started. But there could be some maintenance costs that come up in the future that could come out of someone's budget, but that there may be a few other things that come with it.
Peg, Lisa, you have questions?
Pretty straightforward. I don't think so. I think it's pretty standard for inspectional services to have
Yep.
access to a vehicle.
Is there a motion?
A motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you for
Congratulations.
spearheading
Thanks.
that
Yeah.
effort.
Not a problem.
Could
Yeah.
help on the fire side
Yep.
too, if it's a employee vehicle
Yep.
that's needed. They're always short on
Yeah,
vehicles as
yeah,
well.
we
so.
have, with training classes and stuff, it is just another vehicle, to the town administrator's point, not to have to pay mileage if we can give them a vehicle and stuff. It just helps to be able to fill in that gap when those things come up.
Mhm.
And I know with the different employees throughout town, with the different trainings and stuff that we're doing, and where it is a hybrid, it is kind of nice just because it does have both, kind of like our vehicle that we use as a secondary car has got both, capabilities to it, so it's reliable.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna ask, because if it was one of those big Tahoes, the mileage is probably cheaper to pay mileage.
I mean, it could be. I'm not sure on that one, but this one is one of the it's one of the Explorer hybrids. I want to say it's a 2020 or 2021, but I can't remember what year the vehicle is.
21 sounds familiar to me.
Yeah.
It hit its mileage and
Yep.
they were going to sell it. And I said, wait, please hold it. So of course now it's sitting, which isn't
Yep.
necessarily.
Yeah, it
That's
hasn't been
right.
good. We've driven around the parking lot and stuff since I got it running just to keep the brakes from kind of rusting out and stuff and to keep them kind of going and just get the vehicle moving and that kind of stuff. So we've moved it around a couple times, but we haven't just brought it out on the road yet just because it wasn't registered. So legally we can't. But we're gonna get the car out now and stuff to use it, get it looked at the garage and just see with the indicator lights. I think they came on just because of the battery dying on it and stuff. And I think some things just need to be reset with it. But it may need a couple tweaks to the engine and some service stuff because it's been sitting for a while. Might be due for an oil change and a lube oil.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mike.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You
Yes.
as well. Thanks.
Go rest. The department heads were planning on coming in tonight, between some schedule conflicts and some not feeling the greatest, they're not here. And so we'll double up a little bit. I noticed the reports aren't in the folder anymore. They were when I looked at it over the weekend.
Oh, you know what I did? I moved them to the 9th so that
Okay.
I wouldn't lose them. But I can also make a copy and move it back.
Yep.
But they are in February 9th right now.
I don't know if there's any questions people had from them that we can give to Kristen to pass on to them. I think when they come back, I would have them focus just on the current month and not read 2 months worth of reports. We could still ask questions on the month that wasn't presented, but it's staler at that point.
Let me know if you need me to add them back to
Yep.
the drive, but they are on February 9th meeting now. So,
Yeah, no, just thank Fred for the rock.
oh, yes.
And then I noticed in person here, we have no one who signed up for general public comment. I don't see any hands up online. Right. And so I think we'll move on to the town administrator report.
Okay, great. So it is all about budgets this time of year. I have prepared the requested budget section of the budget document along with the supplemental funding requests and some very, very, very preliminary revenue estimates. I am looking, as we discussed at the last meeting, for the board to provide some higher level 50,000 foot, if you will, direction and guidance on the budget request, particularly the supplemental funding requests, which total $250,000 approximately. I have also begun the meetings with department heads and boards and committees, which allow me to dive deeper into these budgets, ask the questions I need, prepare my budget narrative, and then get my recommended budget out in the spreadsheet. The FinCom also started their budget meetings last Wednesday. They had a preliminary discussion with Assabet and BBRSD. I have included their preliminary estimates in the requested section of the draft budget. This coming Wednesday, inspectional services and highway facilities budget presentations will take place. And just a reminder for those of you who are watching, if you're interested in coming to FinCom meetings, but you don't want to come in person, they are now hybrid. You can also just watch on the YouTube channel. And you can watch after the meeting when we post them on the YouTube channel as well. And you can come in person if you so desire as well. So those are always Wednesdays at 7:30, room 227, or online for the foreseeable future.
Except to the Wednesday.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. This coming Wednesday is in person. Thank you.
Right.
We did not have staffing sufficient with cable services. So this Wednesday, hopefully only will be in person. Brittany is looking into getting a microphone so that we could work off the laptop if we had to. My concern was just hearing people and trying to sit around a small table. I didn't want folks to have something important to say and not be heard. So yes, thank you for that. And it looks like we're going to move the Select Board and FinCom joint budget meeting to March 2nd, to the March 2nd Select Board meeting. And the deadline for the budgets to be submitted by the Berlin-Boylston District will be March 20th. The districts will also be back, the districts, Assabet and Berlin-Boylston, will be back next month to give a more shored up budget presentation. And the numbers, I can tell you from Assabet, they've gone down. 6 students less are participating this coming year. They use October 1st as that cutoff date for determining students for the next year. Their budget is always pretty straightforward because it's a per pupil assessment. It's going down about $140,000. Berlin-Boylston is going up by 11.3% at this point. But they do anticipate that will come down some because that is an early conservative estimate. We don't have health insurance numbers, which are being estimated at 20% across the board from Maya. We'll have more information on that at MMA in a couple of weeks, and that will help drive. Also, they have transportation is always a huge driver. I was joking at last week's budget meeting that if you want to start a business, you should start a bus company because there are very few in the game. And so the prices are really driven by the monopoly that one company has in the region. And the board will be asked to open the annual town meeting warrant this evening with an anticipated close date of February 23rd. As I've done in the past, I've just included that list of articles I've sort of collected since the last town meeting. Please note that not all of those are official requests. They're just items that have been discussed that may or may not end up being on the warrant. Everyone is asked to submit their warrant articles by email to me with a copy to D. The FY7 capital budget recommendation is complete. The Capital Planning Committee voted to recommend all capital funding requests from town departments at a total cost of $275,645, of which only $11,500 comes from free cash, and the balance comes from the public safety mitigation funds as typically done. The committee also voted to recommend all capital funding requests from the district, the school district, except for the Tohoto parking lot expansion project. Berlin's share of that parking lot project would be $234,540. And excluding the parking lot, their total requested capital funding is $194,537. Speaking on behalf of Capital, which I probably shouldn't do, but I will, they felt those funding requests were very reasonable. They've shown up on prior capital year requests, and it is really the time to address some of those issues. If you all recall, there were $3 million in initial capital requests submitted by the district last year, and they've broken it out into, I think, a much more manageable pieces, and really prioritized the essential items that they need. So without speaking for Capital, I would say that's why they were comfortable moving those forward. Parking lot expansion they felt was too expensive. Update on the town center project. We are slated to have our septic exploration and testing finally this Wednesday, provided the weather cooperates this time. And just as a reminder, the system has to be brought up to code before any of those interconnected properties can be sold, which are First Parish Church, 1870 Town Hall, and 16 Woodward Ave. So this is a twofold exploration that's going to happen on hopefully Wednesday. The first is to look at the septic system and identify issues and map it out to see what the capacity is. And then they will be doing a test boring over at 1870 in the parking lot as part of the drainage exploration. They are hoping to be able to address the drainage and stormwater with a catch basin. I think I put storm drain in there. I meant catch basin. Down at the bottom that would tie into the existing catch basin system in the street, drainage system in the street. So they have to look at percolation and impervious surface and all of the things to see if that would work. So that is moving forward. I would also like to congratulate our new full-time firefighter EMTs, Liam Cushman and Howie Priest. They have successfully completed their one-year probationary period. Definitely have integrated into the team and are very valuable part of our team. So we're really happy to have them. We also met with the Teamsters and the Highway Department union representatives for a third time last week. And we'll discuss a very early preliminary draft proposal in executive session with the board this evening. The town website has been migrated over to its new format. However, it is not live yet because we are training everybody on how to use it before we make it live. But we did have the opportunity to preview it this past week. I think it's greatly streamlined and more user-friendly. And it just looks cleaner. So I'm hoping it will be easier for folks to find stuff with the new format in addition to some of the reorganizing that we had Capital Strategic Solutions do earlier this year. I received a call from Oars asking if we could discuss the Wheeler Pond Dam. They are seeking support from the town and the select board specifically to be the lead applicant on an MVP grant to fund removal of the dam. That dam is privately owned, but it's a significant hazard dam. It is eligible for MVP funding, but only towns can apply for that funding. So CMRPC does a lot of this work. They have agreed to write and manage the grant so that the burden on the town would be minimal. But also we have an opportunity to put in one of our projects as well. So I'm pulling in Fred and Conservation to discuss this opportunity further. There is an MVP priority project list. The project would have to be on that list. I know also I had Tim Wysocki weigh in a while back because he was involved in the process and he talked about stormwater management and I think it was tree hazards. So I forwarded that information on to CMRPC and hopefully we will come up with a project and present the entire opportunity to the board at the February 9th meeting. Oars would be here as well as CMRPC to discuss it since we would have to submit on their behalf. Just a reminder that annual reports are due no later than January 31st. I also posted the building commissioner position for 30 hours with a deadline of January 30th and attended the energy committee meeting where former energy fellow Omid Mandavi was recommended for appointment as a technical advisor to the energy committee. And we discussed potential more facilities oriented projects for our new energy fellow. This is Kelt round 2 that we received a fellow. And we also have the opportunity to get a free 2-week trial of a new Chevy Blazer EV for the police department to actually have them drive it, experience it, see what it is. I did apply for that to get some more information. I let Chief Shartner know. He had informed me as of this afternoon that he was on some kind of wait list for trying out one of those vehicles. I don't know exactly what that was, but he was certainly in favor of the opportunity. He had said so. Looking forward to hopefully getting to try that out and then we can see what the challenges are, what the opportunities are and how it works for patrol. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, with the town reports due by the 31st, what's the timeline to actually have those published for folks?
So the report will go to the printer in March, usually end of March, beginning of April.
Right, which is the same time we try to do warrants as well. I just want to make sure they don't overlap too much.
So I think we'd be okay. My idea would be to bring it forward to you guys. We can probably, if we can't bring it forward for the 26th meeting, I can have it for you at the February 9th meeting. I usually draft it. Peg, did you draft it this year or was that last year?
It was last year.
Oh.
Last turn this year.
It's your turn this year? Okay. So if you were able to get us what you have,
Yep.
I'll combine it with mine and we can put it on the February 9th agenda
Yep.
for review.
And then, I know it's early, but making sure the warrant gets to people more than a week or two before the town meeting. I mean, I'm a big proponent of trying to get it in the mail that first week of April, which I know is sometimes difficult to do if we can't finalize budgets until the second week of April.
Right.
But trying to get that together as quickly as possible. And so just for thoughts, not, I can't imagine you have a detailed timeline for getting that in the mail yet when we don't even have all the budgets in yet, so.
I do have a draft calendar, and the goal is to get it to the printer by April 1st. So that would get it out towards the end of the first week of
Yep.
April. Now, again, the school budget kind of drives that. The March 20th deadline is a
Yep.
little challenging, but we make it a point to have our last FinCom meeting on the final Wednesday in March. So that way we can make any little last tweaks and get it over to the printer basically 2 days later, 3 days later.
Okay, Lisa.
Do you have any updates on the regional agreement, where we are with that?
Yes, I do. It actually has to go. I spoke with Al briefly after the December 9th school committee meeting. They say it initiates with DESI. I have heard that may not be the case. It was DESI who initiated it, if you remember, and sent us a letter. So I am forwarding that letter from DESI. I actually think the best thing at this point is to just ask Labor Council the best way to proceed, and I would recommend Valerio because they do schools, that's what they do. And try to figure out where we're at, because I'm getting different information that conflicts about how we go about this process. And I thought that we were on a path, and then it shifted to, we have to get comments from DESI first. So I would like to get some guidance from council on that.
I think it'd be great if DESI would give us some feedback, but start with them. They're not the ones who suffer from a bad regional agreement. And we might, the three bodies potentially involved, us, the town of Boylston and the school district, we might disagree on what needs to be changed, but I think all three of us agree there's some horrible problems with the existing agreement.
Yeah, I mean, what was raised was one of the caveats that if we go and modify the agreement, the formula will be adjusted, because that's something DESI's pointed out, and it
Right.
may or may not be in Berlin's favor. But I think we need to adjust the agreement
I
regardless.
think we need to adjust the agreement regardless. There's a lot of problems with the agreement, including a March 20th deadline to be able to get us the number one thing. The rest of the town waits on that, and they can give it to us 5 days or 10 days before it has to be to the printer. And that just doesn't work. But again, the list that we provided the schools, and I know that they say we haven't given the list, but we talked to the list. Most of that list came from last year's budget cycle, where they said over and over again at their meetings, boy, the agreement is unclear about X, the agreement's unclear about Y. This would be easier if the agreement said Z. And I thought almost everything the school administration said was true. And I might, again, there might be different people with different opinions about what it should be, but the idea that if it's unclear is causing problems, we should make it clear.
And I think that I need a little help
Yep.
on guidance on a path forward. In addition to being Labor Council, VDH does schools. That is their other bailiwick, if you will. They did the, teacher strike negotiations when they were going on out in Newton. I think they'll be able to give me some guidance. I don't know exactly where sort of the resistance is coming
Yep.
from, but I think the leadership from both of the towns is a more correct place to start than with DESI, especially since we already received a letter from DESI, basically not only green lighting, but
Right.
encouraging us to take a look at the regional agreement. And I, don't want to ruffle feathers too much in budget season either, but I would like to try to kind of understand what we should be doing, what's the standard thing to be doing, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, frustration is not with you,
No, no, no.
because I think you've done great at trying to move this along, but like last year at this time, it was clear this problem was an issue, and we were hoping even by fall town meeting, we would have something to vote on, and now it is clearly that we will not have something by May town meeting, because people should be working on budgets and not necessarily negotiating a new regional agreement. And then you get into summer where the schools are out, and
Correct. And we met, it was either September or October, with the Boylston Town Administrator, myself, the Superintendent, and the Director of Finance, and I thought that we had a path forward.
Yep.
I think that the school committee has some different opinions on how to proceed.
Yeah, I think one of the problems initially was DESI's I understand that they are sort of an advisory body on this and they have to approve it. But it does have to be our agreement. It
Right.
has to work for our community,
Right.
and I don't think it does. Do you need a motion or just us to weigh in on
I
consulting
I-
legal?
I think a motion to allow her to go to Valerio for legal is a clear direction.
Okay, so moved.
And seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you. And you know, I hate spending legal money if I don't have to, but this I think is very important and I'm not
Yeah.
sure, like I said, where our stumbling block is. So,
Right, I think if this was proceeding, we wouldn't need this, but
Right.
to make sure if it is unclear way forward, I think the only way is to make sure we have some good outside advice.
And then we know.
Then we know.
exactly. And then if their council wants to weigh in and disagree or agree, we
Right.
can go from there.
And then
Right,
the
thank you.
last question that I had, have you ever heard back from CM Geeks on picking up the old equipment that's sitting in 1870 Town Hall on a desk that I think has been shifted around multiple times because they need to destroy it
Yep.
or destroy the hard drive?
I
rather?
believe what they said was the next time they were in town, they would grab it, but I will follow up and see. Cause they kind of don't always
Just
know when they're gonna
remind
be
them.
here. It's when
Yeah.
they have an
Same
issue.
thing.
So I will remind them.
Yeah,
My
they're on the desk.
hairstylist is just down the road, just throw it in my car. I'll throw it there on Friday. Here, have it.
Yeah, I don't
Well, they
know.
gotta destroy the
Yeah.
hard drives on the, yeah.
Well, I think there's one computer, there's a printer. I don't know if it works or not. Honestly, I don't know where it came from. There's some monitors. I don't know if they work or not, but in a series of cords, I think there might be some keyboards too, so.
They're just in Clinton.
Hmm?
They're just in Clinton.
Oh, I know.
It's not.
Let me pick them up and drop them off or.
Oh,
that-
oh, that's what, I'm sorry, I didn't follow. I see what you're saying. They are here, you know, at least a couple times a month. It may have fallen off their radar,
Do
so
we need to get the stuff over to the
Storage room
place
downstairs.
where they are when they come here? Cause they don't normally go over to 1870,
You
right?
need a key to get in.
that's not a bad idea.
So maybe we should get it over
Okay.
here.
Okay,
I can get it over.
you don't mind?
I'll take the dolly. Is it still downstairs?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
Well, and that room I think is locked, right? Cause that's a server room downstairs, so we just have to get
The
a key to
storage room.
get in.
Prominent, please take.
Yes.
The dolly is in the storage room and then we'll have to get a key. My key, I think, fits the storage, the server room.
Server room,
Yeah.
yeah. That's where they keep, as far as I know, some of the extra stuff.
Did please take. Okay. All right, I'm done. Thanks.
My only one was, so do we have any idea on when there'd be training for volunteers on the web?
So we did a first training for employees on the key, like public safety, us, and then we have another round coming up, I believe.
No.
Oh, we don't.
So I have emailed and asked for additional training if that's provided. If not, what's really good about this new website, it's very easy and there are videos that are very, they're really good. It's not like
Perfect,
the
'cause
old.
The last one had nothing.
It was nothing. This one makes it very clear on how you do things. And I had Amy train, Melissa train, myself, Abby, and Kristen. So there are 5 of us that people can go to for help.
I
We
have
were
to
limited
say-
with the amount of people we were allowed to have on the training.
Yeah, and because it's a free upgrade, because they're moving away from the platform, I have found that the communication has been lacking on their end and the services that they're willing to provide are lacking because we're not paying. I think it's because we're not paying for the upgrade. So that's been a little frustrating because initially I was of the impression we were getting 2 rounds of training. And then when we did get the first round, we were on with like 7 other different communities around the country. It was very different than how it was portrayed to us initially. So I know we had a little
And
frustration.
different from when I've been in other communities when they've upgraded their websites and it's only been that particular town.
Well, I think initially when we chose that company, they were Massachusetts based and they were bought by a larger company.
They
so-
were, yeah, it used to be virtual towns and schools and then they got bought by Civic Schools. So. Yeah, so I know Dee's reached out, they asked for feedback on the trainings and it's like, we need more, so we'll see where we go from there.
That's all I have.
Let's move on to the consent item then. The consent agenda today is a series of minutes from October 6th, October 21st, November 13th, November 17th, and December 1st. The appointment of ZBA alternate Pat Jackson to a regular member of the ZBA to fill through June 30th, 2026. And to request us to surplus a 2012 highway vehicle to auction off on municipal bid.
No problem.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Other business, appointing Energy Committee Technical Advisor Omid Madavi not as a non-voting member of the Energy Committee. Do you want to talk about it, Kristen?
The reason I put it on there was just in case there were questions, because what it does actually requires the board to vote to change the composition of the Energy Committee, which is a select board created committee. So I just wanted to make that clear that it's non-voting. Right now, the Energy Committee has 2 members. So they are looking, if anyone's interested, please reach out to our office and we can get you an application. But this will also help our fellow maintain and continue to be able to assist us even beyond. And it's a great resume builder opportunity for him as well.
And he's been super.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
great.
he's got a great brain, so, you know, and if we can borrow it.
Yeah.
Do it.
And he's willing to give it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it's not, I could think, because I thought it needed a little bit more explanation. I thought it would be if there's a motion, we can.
Right. So you're essentially
Okay.
adding a technical
Yep.
advisor to the Energy Committee composition and then appointing Omid to that role.
There a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then to open the 2026 annual town meeting warrant with an anticipated close date of February 23rd.
That just
Um,
takes a vote.
Which does take a vote. I was also, there was several of them on the potential list that I think are fine to get rid of off the potential list even now.
Okay.
Do we want to move to open it first and then have that conversation?
I think that would
Sure,
be best.
so
Motion to open the town meeting.
Seconded.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. I have my lit, do other people have comments on the list before I take over the conversation? I have it on paper. There's a reason for that, because I didn't have a laptop with me and I wasn't gonna, anyway. The permanent LED in the center of town, I think is not ready, and I don't think it's something that we should be spending time on, at least right now. I know there was a warrant article, there was a bylaw change that allowed us to have one, but I don't think that's.
I
Nothing to
think
speak
it
of,
would
but
have to be approved by capital anyways, because my research said it's at least probably $30,000 to $35,000.
right. So I think that one could come off of the list of one. The appointing of town clerk was something at last year's town meeting that didn't pass by a smaller relative, but as someone who raised it last time, I don't think it's worthy of bringing something back year after year. I think if people spoke, even if it wasn't the direction I wanted to go, I'm not ready for another sort of bite at that right now.
I think there was some confusion about what it means and the fact that it was portrayed as giving residents more control by keeping it as elected or more oversight, when in reality, if you have your board who does day-to-day operations overseeing that position, you're actually going through a vetting process and making sure the experience is there. So that is the only reason that it was carried over. It was discussed at one point if we bring it back to the board again. Obviously, completely up to you. I just wanted to let you know why it wasn't on there.
I do think it makes us vulnerable as a community to not do this.
to
Okay.
not do.
To not
Oh,
bring
keep
this
going.
back.
To beat the horse?
I think it's a pretty major issue
Okay.
to have that. I don't know what your thoughts are, Peg.
Yeah, no, you know what? It went down. I don't think right now we have the time to do much more research on it. I think nerves are raw, so, you know, not the hill to die on in May. Maybe another time.
I think in some respects, it might be something better for a fall town meeting where it can give more attention to procedural things and less money stuff.
Is
Uh,
there consensus on removing, or I guess that one, that sounds like there's not consensus, so it would be helpful if we could do a vote at the end on which ones to remove, maybe?
I think I mean, I don't think you're spending a ton of time on any of these in the next couple of weeks.
No,
I
I'm
think we
not.
can look at it closer than in a couple of weeks.
Okay, so just,
And then this is the removing the requirement to mail warrants. I still think it's important to mail them out there. We don't have a great way of communicating out there. We're not mailing the whole town report anymore. We've shrunk it to just the warrant.
I think some of your issues with timing might be solved by this, though, by
Yeah.
sending out a postcard with a QR code. You can to it or the link on it, because then you could send that out the minute that we have the warrant ready,
A
as
draft,
opposed to
even.
having to wait to print that out. And this is very commonly being done in multiple communities. Dee did
practice.
some research on it for me, and this is something that is pretty frequently done now. I would not recommend at this point not mailing anything, but it is not, my understanding is it is not notice or those types of things.
Right.
It is having controversial things on the warrant that turns people out to town meeting.
Right.
so we did get a quote from Clinton Offset, what it would cost to do the postcard, 1,700, either 4x6 or 5x7 postcards. It was,
Double-sided.
yes, double-sided, thank you, $424.50.
Versus about the $3,000 or 3,500 we spend now.
Correct.
But they'll be available if someone says, I don't know how to do the little QR code.
We can always print them.
Yep.
Okay.
We can put on there, hard copies can be picked up at X location, whether
Okay.
it's us, library, call us, we'll print you one, we
Okay.
could certainly use that. Just something to think about. It's a substantial cost
Mhm.
savings.
Yep.
Okay, don't cross that one off. So the only one I think we're crossing off for now is the permanent LED sign.
Yep.
Okay. And the warrant is open. We'll see how many warrant articles we get. The commentary on the bottom of the piece of paper talks about procedural changes, about trying to do an article that is just Berlin-Boylston Regional School District budget. I think if you did that, to be fair, I think there would be one also for Assabet.
Yes, I think that would be
Just,
fair, and I'd like to
yeah.
see them first.
Yes.
I know there was discussion about that,
Yep,
as well as putting that little reminder on the warrant, asking people if you could please arrive an hour early, so that way we're not starting the meeting 30 minutes late because people are coming in at the last minute.
I think it's more you say the meeting is going to start
Mhm.
at,
right,
and
We
there-
don't
Right.
wait.
please
Right.
arrive early.
right.
Okay,
These are road, because just like the plane leaves at 7 o'clock, that means you're not getting to the gate at 7 o'clock, because there's things that have to happen first. And so if you're not to the gate by 20 till, you might not actually make it on the plane in time.
We need to have everybody ready to go,
Yep.
not wandering around and talking to people and putting
Yeah.
out chairs. I mean, that needs to be curbed. We're our own worst enemy on that.
and the challenge with
It's-
that is it's the moderator's decision when to start the meeting, and he can delay if there is a line out the
Yep.
door, so.
We can do what's within our control, and
Yeah.
other people can do what's in their control. And so if we remind people to get there earlier, then, if people are really in their seats by the time the meeting starts. I also had questions about our ability to do the old fashioned trick that we used to do, which is a special meeting before the town meeting, so that we could potentially start a special meeting at 6:30 that deals with like all 2025 fiscal year issues, or a couple of housekeeping things that we can do before the formal town meeting starts. So that we can get some things out of the way before the 7:30 start time, because despite the fact of us passing it at the fall town meeting the state has not done their part of it yet, that allows us to actually hold this meeting when we want to hold this meeting.
That is true, and I don't know when that will come from the state, if
Right.
it will come in
That would
time.
be a question for Senator Kennedy and Representative Kilcoyne when they take a visit.
That's the AG, not the
Right,
legislature.
it's the AG,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know, but still,
Yeah, they have no control over, that's another elected.
Right, and it would be another potential mailing, and so we'd have to figure out what the mailing looks like, if it's the mailing for both meetings at the same time, because they used to be in sort of one thing together. And at what point we declare it, and then do the warrant open and closing for special town meeting prior to town meeting.
I think you could still do it in one document.
I think you can do it
when
in
you
one
mail
document.
it. I think you post it as two documents when the
Yeah.
constable posts it, but you could mail it as all together.
And so we likely have to, in the next meeting or two, declare a special town meeting prior to the town meeting and declare its start time and warrant period.
If that's something you're interested, we can put that, interested in
Yep.
doing, can put it on the January 26th.
Yep.
Or
I think-
February 9th.
And I think we all think 6:30, which is the time we were thinking we wanted to start the general town meeting anyway, so. The fun part will be trying to figure out, a half hour, what would take an hour?
Correct, correct.
If it's all consent things, we could have 6 items that could take us 5 minutes, but we all have seen 2 items take an hour, so.
And also that warrant has to be posted earlier.
Yep.
So I would recommend we post the entire thing, but we're trying to
Yep.
send it out early anyways.
yep.
I'm just
Yep,
legitimately
yep.
going through it in my mind.
Yep.
Cause it's 14 days for STM,
Right, and 30 for a, no, it's 14 for.
7,
7 and 14, yeah, we'll still be fine.
Yeah.
For the
we
first.
should be fine.
Yep.
I just was walking through it out loud.
Have we ever, just asking, have we ever considered lining those up so you're not dealing with different number of days for different types of meetings?
That stays law on the
I believe
special
it's an
election.
MGL.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
couldn't make them both 14?
Oh, you could maybe have
I-
a local bylaw to make annual, earlier.
I'm just wondering.
Because the
just-
intent
it's just
was, of course, everyone always knows what annual is,
consistency.
and so because special could be anytime you wanted longer notice, but
Correct.
you're right, anything time we can make all meetings are 14 days advance notice with the warrant, would
We
be
can
great.
look at it.
Simpler is better.
Yes.
Is that enough on the town meeting warrant for now?
For me,
No.
yes.
Let's go on to C then, 27 budget discussion. This is high level stuff for us to sort of have our commentary on, we like this, we don't like this. I don't think this is not us debating if something is $4,000 or $5,000.
Both of those meetings are prescribed by MGL, the 7 and 14 days.
Well, we have legislators coming in front of us.
I feel like you could do longer,
Right,
just not shorter.
right. You can always do longer, yes. Because I've always wanted to do it 30, and maybe it's not
And
for the
then
actual warrant,
maybe
but
you-
like start reminding
Maybe you
people
fix the
now.
mindset
Right,
by having it 14 rather than 7
yep.
also.
Would you like me to just give a high level overview of some of the big budget drivers in terms of cost requests? And
Yep.
then I can talk a little bit about the supplemental funding requests and get some guidance from you
Mhm.
there, which would be very helpful before we spend too much time going down a rabbit hole. So what we have here is an increase in well, actually, you know what? Let me do them both. I'm gonna do them both together as
Yep.
we go department by department, because I think that would be a little easier. So the first would be town administrator. We are looking at a supplemental funding request of $58,500. That is a request to reorganize the office to have an assistant town administrator and a 19-hour-a-week executive assistant. And that would be the cost in terms of what we've looked at with market rates for both of those positions. The HR is also going up, anticipated to go up from 20,000 from last year to 50,000. We have 2 union negotiations that are underway that will likely both go into effect on July 1st of 27. The audit has gone up. Our 3-year contract expired, and sometimes that's an opportunity to increase. Also, audit firms have consolidated. That's another business that would be great for you to go in, is municipal audits. They have really consolidated into to bigger firms, and the costs are going up as well. There's just not very many people out there that do it anymore. There is a supplemental funding request from the treasurer collector's office for $30,000 for a 19-hour-a-week payroll benefits person. Legal, unfortunately, the way we're trending this year, we're back up to $100,000 in legal, the unanticipated costs. And again, we won't know for next year, but for this year, we had obviously the highway union, we have a conservation lawsuit, amongst a few other unanticipated costs that have occurred as well. Tax title, there is a request to go up 2,500. We haven't done tax title since FY 24, hoping to ramp that up in FY 27, and we'll need a little bit of additional money because we are behind. Let's see, the Agricultural Commission has requested $5,000 in supplemental funding to repair/pave the driveway. That is a cost estimate that they had received from Highway. It's not large enough to be a capital request. So that is why it came through as supplemental funding. Police, the salary looks like a huge jump. It wasn't reflected in last year's budget because contract negotiations were not complete with the chiefs. So that money was parked in the HR line item. It is now being transferred back to where it rightfully belongs. So while it looks like a $20,000 increase in the police chief's salary, that was split over last year and this year. So that is a contractual obligation. That does bring the police chief's salary to $164,800, including the 3% cost of living that we're all tied to now in our contracts. Same with fire. It looks like you're going up more, but again, that was split out. We had the money parked in HR. Now it's being moved to where it belongs. Back on police though, there are two supplemental funding requests for police wages. One is $16,000 to convert one of the sergeant positions into a lieutenant position to help with administrative day-to-day operations, given posts and all of the things that are coming up in accreditation. The other is to add a 12th police officer at a half-year cost, so phasing that in over 2 fiscal years, as we have done in the past with some of the other positions. Under fire and EMS, you will see there is a increase on the wages for ALS if we decide to move in that direction, as well as expenses to get the paramedics trained. So those 2 supplemental funding requests, did I total that up incorrectly? No, 19,000 for an increase. That's basically the difference between a BLS budget and an ALS budget. And there's more details on that in the file if you want to look through the particulars there. And then funding for 4 staff firefighter EMTs to attend the 9-month paramedic training program does not come cheap. It's just under $64,000 total. I would remind you that we can bill higher with ALS, so there are some upfront costs that would not be, or one-time costs that would not be ongoing, ongoing costs. Let's see. We have an add for a small amount of overtime to the communications budget for the public safety admin, because there is a 24-hour operation going on down there. A lot of times it requires a Sunday come in to do a few hours of work on payroll weeks in order to have everything processed for Monday morning with the details and the overtime and things that go on over the weekends. Payroll is due at 9 a.m. On Monday mornings. And so this allows for 2 hours every other week to do that Sunday payroll when needed.
And do we have to have a separate line for that? Why can't that show to people under wages?
It could be. I called it out. It can certainly go into wages. It wasn't a supplemental funding request because it's basically something we're using comp time for right now, but I can certainly roll it into wages.
Just I think the fewer lines both makes it easier for people to see what's going on. And just those silly reserve fund transfers. Oh, the overtime really was $2,300. And so we have to now merge, move money from somewhere to another.
Yep, I can definitely do that. All right. We do have an increase in snow and ice. Again, we are having to hire more outside plow drivers, which is an increase in the part-time wages, and the increase in the full-time wages, especially overtime, is for putting the building maintenance / highway person position on the schedule for plowing, because we have been struggling so much to find operators. So that's the increase there of $11,131 for full-time overtime, and then $3,327 in the increase for the plow drivers.
Although snow and ice is the one thing that you can deficit spend.
Yes, you can.
And
now you don't have to take it to town meeting
right.
under Unimod.
Yeah.
So you guys can make that vote. If
I mean,
need be.
I think it's good because I think a lot of governments hide things that way by budgeting $3 for snow and salt when it's 3 million and then transferring from somewhere else and not letting the taxpayer say anything. But it's good to regularly raise it a little bit.
Right, and also we use the state contract for the salt, so the expense is level funded because that amount is the same, which has been a blessing to have the state contract for salt, so. Cause that's not cheap, that's $90,200 a year. Also, you'll notice Neshoba Environmental and Neshoba Community Health, those used to be Neshoba Nursing and, oh my gosh, what the heck was the other one called?
Neshoba Board of Health, I thought.
I think so. They have now changed their names to Environmental and Community Health, and there is a 30% increase. It doesn't look like a lot on paper, but they are struggling, as we've discussed before. They have some state pension system issues and escalating costs on their end that they did send a letter explaining why they had to pass that on to the community. So it really does only amount to about $5,500 total, but it is a large increase of 30%. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to call that out.
When we get to that part, I want to again understand the benefits of some of that. I get regionalization stuff, but if it's going up by large chunks, I want to know what we're getting for some of those things, because I think some of the services, because I tried last year, heard the budget saying,
Yeah.
boy, they do some great things, but they do some things that are duplicate of other things in this town, and we're told we can't pick and choose.
Right, those are coupled.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, if you were to bring on your own health agent, full-time salaries for health agents are pushing 90 or 100,000 right now. So even if you had a part-time or a fractional, you're gonna end up paying more than the $18,000 total that you pay for both of those. Or sorry, that was 26, going up to 24,000 approximately for 20. So I do still think it's cheaper, but I can certainly get you the information on.
No, so is that again,
advantages.
they do some great work, but some of the stuff is not as not as needed as it might have been 10 and 20 years ago. And so it could be just going back to them, like if their costs are going up, then maybe cut the things that are already duplicated or being done in other places.
Right. There is a large increase on recreation expenses. From what I understand, those are fixed costs, but I have not had a chance to sit down yet with anybody to really go over the specifics. There is actually a larger decrease than I said with Assabet. Assabet assessment is anticipated to go down $191,653. However, as you know, that's a totally fluctuating number. So next year it could go back up by 400,000 if they add 12 students from Berlin. So it's really variable, but that does help this year, given where we're at with the other needs in the budget, including the Berlin-Boylston assessment, which I've only gotten a draft number, a total overall number. It is it's just over $1 million increase, and that works out to, when rounded, 11.4%. Now that number will come down some, but one comment I wanted to make, and I made it at the department head meeting today as well. We are facing a structural deficit at the state level, as we've talked about before. We are still at 2008 UGA, or unrestricted government aid levels. And my favorite chart, which I will pull up at some point, is of the 50 states, Massachusetts is the 13th lowest in terms of state aid provided to municipalities. Like North Dakota, Hawaii are less than us, but also Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. So this is a regional issue where state funding is not trickling to local communities to pay for a greater percentage of some of these costs that get passed on to the cities and towns. And so on one hand, we're not getting the money from the state, but we're capped by Prop 2.5. So when you have budgetary increases and you don't have the new growth to fill in the gap, the MMA is pushing hard. Again, I encourage folks to read the Perfect Storm article. It does a really succinct job at explaining what our structural deficit is and makes some great policy recommendations for local options for revenue raising and how to move forward to get out of this sort of state that we're in that's causing communities to go to override. In our case, to use excess levy. Override is, a non-starter in so many cities and towns. And, we will be there at some point. So hopefully the state will work with us in between that time, and that will help, but that remains to be seen. The other big jump, as usual, is Worcester Regional Retirement is a 10.1% jump. So that is a jump of $82,992. And we are budgeting right now for a 20% increase in health insurance over where we're at. And just so you know, that FY 26 number has been adjusted by the funding that was taken out at town meeting. We added 20% on that. We did also look at enrollments. We have, I believe it's either 4 or 5 new enrollments that have come on in the last 2.5 months. People are aging out of their parents' plans at the 26 mark and having to get on their own. And we are seeing a lot of turnover in staffing, and new employees have been taking plans, and folks have also been coming off spouse plans and coming on to town plans. So, you know, we're anticipating that that number is going to be pretty close to where we need to be at. So that is $154,450 increase. I am hopeful that when they say 15 to 20%, I budget for 20. When we hear at MMA, usually our claims are lower because we're smaller and we get diluted by the Maya pool. I'm hoping we'll be closer to 15 because last year some towns went up as high as 18 and we were closer to 12. So I'm hoping that will stay the same. But for right now, I need to budget conservatively at the highest end. And I think I hit on, oh, I'm sorry, library, I missed, had a supplemental funding request. There's an increase in youth services. Request from 18 to 30 hours due to the growth in the use of services. There has been a 43% increase in circulation of children's books alone in the past year. And there are more activities and programs that are being attended by families. There's some good momentum going on there. They'd like to be able to continue it. They also have an employee who is working more hours than they should, and that has been curbed, but the need is there. So I think I hit on everything I wanted to hit on.
With the library, when they do increase salaries, they also do increased expenses because we have a ratio we have to hit on materials.
There is a ratio of the overall budget. I can find out how much that would cost.
I mean, I think
don't
the
think
library
it's a
board and
lot.
library director are way more on top of it than I am. I just remember that
Yep.
every time they.
There's a
increase
ratio,
things,
yeah,
there's
there
a
is.
ratio they have to hit.
Can we go back to the lieutenant position?
Mhm.
So there's currently 3 sergeants.
Yep.
And the request is to be at 2 sergeants and make a sergeant a lieutenant.
Yes, convert one of the sergeant positions into a lieutenant position.
So maybe it's changed and on my noggin, it's just fallen out, but are we still operating under the guise of a temporary sergeant position? Or did that ever become permanent?
There
Acting
is an
sergeant.
acting, yep, that it falls under management rights. There is still an acting sergeant.
So, never mind. I'll stop there. I'll wait
When
until
we,
he's
when
here.
we get to the police budget as big conversations.
Yep.
Yep.
It has been stated that there's been no increase in staffing in the police since 96 in a public setting. And I do not believe that to be the case because I think we have added staff regularly for a while. And so I'd like to know what our staffing was in 96 and our staffing is
Yes.
now to show that we've gone probably, I think, from 4 full-time officers to 11 full-time officers in that spate of time.
I asked for clarification on that because I knew that was stated in a confusing way. They meant in terms of having 2 police officers on day shifts. That has not increased since 1994, but our overall total number of officers has. A lot of towns are recommending having 3, if possible, officers per shift, and we're still at 2.
I'd still like to look at that information because
Yep.
that just doesn't seem.
Right, so we were able to do 2 during the daytime shift and 1 at night when I was on FinCom in 2009 on, I thought, 6 or 7 officers. And so we've doubled the number of officers, but there's no increase in the number of people actually working.
There is at night, not during the day.
Right, but that's just gone from 1 to 2.
Yep.
And so we've gone from 2, 2, and 1 to 2, 2, and 2 by doubling the amount of staff.
We've also reduced the part-timers who were filling in at a lot of those shifts too, to actually have consistency with staffing, so you could reduce overtime rates as well. But I'm happy to ask the chief to come and speak to that.
I would also be interested just to see if there are best practice recommendations for a community of our size and makeup or anything like that. To
Yeah,
see where
call
we.
volume would be what drives
we-
us.
Yeah, we have higher call volume than people of our
Yeah,
size.
so what would best practice be
Yep.
for call volume of the community with our call volume then?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if, Lisa, I can't remember if you were on the board, but we were talking about redistributing Neshoba Valley Dispatch, fees. When Hudson was coming on, there was a discussion because they have 20,000 people, as does Lunenburg. They are both large drivers, population wise. So the assessment was gonna be about 220 if it was split evenly between the towns. If we went by population, we would pay about $86,000, I believe. Don't quote me exactly on that number. If we went by call volume, we were at 240. So our
Yeah.
call volume is significantly higher because of the 495 corridor, Highland Commons, that Emerson Urgent Care chief was just talking today about how it's 30% of their calls.
Like I said, we
So, but
have
yeah.
all repeatedly said that we are data driven.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
This is,
An
Yep,
opportunity.
the Hudson Urgent Care that is responsible for 30% of our calls.
Which is why it actually makes sense to go to ALS, because what happens with that is if it's somebody with stroke, heart, breathing, what they do is they dispatch us and Bolton ALS at the same time because we can't handle it at the paramedic level, and then we end up paying about $450 to the town of Bolton. The chief pays out about 60 grand a year in mutual aid ALS. So I think that's another conversation we need to have, but it came up today, so I want to mention it.
Is it more in police and fire? Because I have questions in other areas too.
No, yeah, I will wait.
On the town administrator staffing, with this change, assuming the supplement gets supported, the number of hours currently versus the number of hours that would get us to?
So that would add essentially 19 hours in terms of net hours.
Net hours, right?
Yep.
And so you would end up with a town administrator, assistant town administrator, and a sort of part-time admin
Admin.
person.
Right, and I think that admin person there is certainly enough work for 40 hours. This is looking at a phased-in approach over several years. We don't have an HR director
Right.
or chief financial officer, so you could do it that way, but I think the best way is to combine it into an ATA who focuses on human resources and procurement
Mhm.
and leaves the town administrator deal with budgetary issues along with the accountant.
And we've not currently designated Dee as sort of a fill-in for when you're gone as sort of our, and sort of sadly not with title, but sort of the
In
assistant
duty,
in
yeah, in
duty.
practice, if
in
you will.
practice, right?
But I mean, that is de facto what
Okay.
happens.
Yeah, okay.
I also think, that position really functions more as an executive assistant as
Yep.
opposed to an
yeah,
administrative assistant. So I would like to reform that with the 19-hour position as well.
Yep.
And we did talk about space, our little vestibule.
Yep.
Assabet has actually, they can rip out that cabinet that's in there from the old copy room, and that can be the front office and be right at the front, and then you would have the TA office behind and then the TA office where it is now. So we talked a little bit about space needs there too.
Peg,
No, I'm good.
Lisa?
I just had a question. I know that payroll is due on Mondays, but it seems kind of crazy to me to have somebody
Come
being
on,
paid
Sunday.
overtime to come in on a Sunday to do payroll. So if there are any better solutions for that, I would love to hear them. And that's
Right,
insane.
we're paid every other week, correct?
We are, yep, and the PD payroll is by far the most cumbersome, lengthy time to do,
But
And because they work weekends,
right?
so the way the time
Yeah.
gets put in, because this happens in every community, the person doing that payroll often has to come in on a Sunday.
Yeah, it's
Right,
not
I
uncommon.
though work for a 24/7 agency,
Mhm.
and we don't have people coming in Sunday, that we have till 1 o'clock on Monday to get our pay all situated so that for the pay to come out that Friday.
It is possible for the payroll to be due later, because I have done
Great.
payroll with Harper's in another community.
Right, and we pay on Fridays for a pay period that ends Sunday night.
Thursday is payday. Right?
We do a weird week. We go Monday to Sunday. So it actually captures all the way through Sunday evening,
Midnight Sunday night.
correct?
I'm just saying $30,000 when these things could move. That's kind of nuts.
I think it's 3, not 30.
Oh, that's three
was
for
it
the
three?
overtime.
Oh, it's three,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I heard 30.
the 3 is
Okay.
over,
The-
but
the
still,
30
it-
is
it's still preventable, right?
$3,000.
right.
It seems like it should
Yeah.
be preventable, and I
Right.
know if we're looking at things, it just doesn't seem very sensible.
Let me have some conversations on that.
Yep.
Also, just making Abby come in on
I
a
know.
Sunday.
But it also makes the job not as doable. I mean, she's a great person and
Mhm.
dedicated to this, but it is one of those, oh, I can't go away on every other Sunday because I have to come in to do these things. And
I think we can definitely have some further conversations. I know in my former community, the PD payroll was due Tuesday mornings. But that sounded challenging, so I will have some more conversations around that.
Yeah, because there's always been, I mean, when we would have to look at the paperwork, you know, when you're not around or you're not here. And there was continual issues with scratch outs and crossings and bad math, and it's like, come on, people, you know, you gotta do a little bit better. It wasn't, oh crap, we missed Lisa. It was like, oh, we paid Lisa $1 an hour instead of $10 an hour. There's
Yeah.
systems out there for that.
Well, I think part of it was the rushing to try to get it done for the time, so the 2 hours on Sunday was really helpful but we can definitely look at some other.
Remember, you can have it right or you can have it right now. Which one do you want? Because you
Right.
can't do both. So, more to come, I'm sure.
But also, you know, if she's not as rushed or Viver's not as rushed, if people have time to do what they need to do, then they're not gonna make as many mistakes.
Right, in peace and quiet also, when there aren't other people here as much, you know, and the walking in foot traffic in the building on a Sunday, so. But
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I think what's happening now is it's comp time. I mean, there is compensation being paid for it, but it's accumulating comp time at this point. And like you said, somebody's not getting paid and they're having to come in on their weekends, so.
on a macro question, so it shows some increase. I don't want to say numbers out loud because this is way too big, but you have a percent and dollar increase in your draft spreadsheet. How much of the supplemental is included in that? Because the only one that's in the supplemental column is the town administrator one.
Oh, you know what?
Column DC is empty except for that one.
Yeah, sorry, the supplemental, I always calculate separate
Right.
from the overall budget total and
Right.
increase. So
Right.
that 250 total is not factored in.
Right.
And I have them on the spreadsheet. If
Which
you
is-
go to
right.
the FY27 supplemental.
It is funny that the dollar amounts are so remarkably close to each other.
I-
So I just.
It is
okay,
weird,
okay.
yeah. But if you actually go to the separate spreadsheet for supplemental, that gives you the details. I hadn't thrown it in the
Yep.
actual budget expense tab yet. So I can give you those some overall, when you said macro figures, you know, as it stands now with the request that we've received to date. It is a $1,378,696 increase, which is a 7.63% overall budget increase. So that would, if all funded, not including supplemental, that would bring the budget to $19,456,540. The FY26 budget is just over 18 million. So it is a sizable increase. Again, those are requests. I have some ideas on some of these increases that I would not recommend. And I will be putting that forward when I put my recommended budget together and we have the department meetings.
So right now, if you added in the supplemental,
Mhm.
again, we all love PEG math. You're looking at close to 20 million, so a wee bit over an 8% increase overall, if you add in the 250 for the.
So I just
Yeah,
threw
I
it
thought you
in.
got about 8.5 to 9,
Yep,
but yes.
You're at 9.7 million, and that is a 9% increase.
Which strangely enough, coming from me, is if you look at the increase of the schools and the town, that is not an outrageous
No.
increase considering how tight we were the last couple of years and you know, I think I've said it out loud to at least my household. You know, last year I went after sort of every line and we cut a lot of things out there. And it generated some of the conversation in town that I thought it wanted to, as
Mhm.
people defended, this is an important thing the town does. We really should be spending money on these sort of things. I think my approach might be the other side of the coin this year is support some increased funding and have the people who think we're spending too much money on things, or people who think that we are, spending too much generally, come on the floor and argue which lines should be cut. Because at last year's town meeting, really, the three different opportunities to really spend money or not, spend more money or less money,
Mhm.
they chose spending more money.
Correct.
And I mean, I think there's a balance. This is, not all or nothing. And I still, on every one of these, will want to make sure I think that money is well spent and that it's a benefit to the town. But I openly said, even last year when I was cutting, I think our department heads and you do a great job of stretching the dollars we give you to get things done. I think we have, given the constraints of staffing and money, we provide some good services. And so I don't think there's, waste, fraud, and bloat out there in our government. Sure, we could argue over, should we spend 15 cents on this pencil or 25 cents on the pencil? But I think we're talking about hundreds, not thousands or tens of thousands or millions of dollars, where there could even be a conversation about waste. And so I think we've done a great job. And so I mean, I don't see something on that I think you should stop working on, at least even from my standpoint, you should stop working on, because I think it's dead in the water. Including the increases to the town administrator office.
And I look forward to seeing your recommendations.
Well, it's gonna be a tough year. We're gonna have some interesting conversations. We're
Yep.
gonna have to have some tough conversations. But that's what we're all here for, right? I mean,
Yep.
I think when you have towns going to failed override over and over and over again, it just shows that we are doing a lot with a little, because we have almost $1 million in excess levy, and we haven't had to ask the town, I haven't used that up and then gone to an override. So, we've done I think the staff has done an incredible job for a very long period of time on shoestring. I am seeing, hearing, witnessing burnout. And we've had a lot of staff turnover, and my concern is, every time you lose someone, you lose experience, and then you pay more. So it's employee retention, just from a purely financial perspective, is worth investing in.
I'm good.
Mhm.
Thank you for preparing this. I think this will make the conversation at budget time go faster and better,
Right.
seeing these things now. So when we see them, we're not seeing them for the first time when we're actually voting on things. And
it'll be on the upcoming
Yep.
agendas. So I may not have much updated
Yep.
for the next meeting, but if you think of questions between now and then, we'll at least have a little bit of a discussion on the 26th about the budget and where we're at.
Yep. Draft administration and maintenance policy, D. If I don't have it up in front of me.
Oh. No,
I'm-
I think
The
we all
small
sat
D.
there and looked up
Right.
at you going, okay, go ahead. Well, he
No.
said D.
What?
That's
Yeah,
it. Sorry, it is D on the
Item
agenda.
D. It's
Item
D.
D on the agenda, not, I do mean it as item D on the agenda, not that D is presenting this. Yes, correct.
Yes. So, no.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, it's all right. We all heard it differently.
Mm.
So Lisa kindly put together this draft policy, and it's basically a policy about policies, which,
Yeah.
it is necessary. And I think it does help drive the process, and it helps to allow for small, non-substantive changes to the policy, and lays out how that would function with the town administrator doing it, and what needs to come back to the board. And what doesn't. So I did go through, I did make a few tweaks here and there. So you have the original one, you have the one that I tweaked over the weekend. And I think it's pretty straightforward. The main thing I wanted to add was in basically enabling the town administrator to implement the policies in accordance with day-to-day operations, because I think that's key, and allowing those non-substantive changes will make a big difference that allow the policies to be up to date. And I don't know, Lisa, if you want to speak a little bit more to it.
No, I just didn't want policies hitting the agenda because we need to change the email address or
Selectmen to
stupid
select board.
things. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you've called out the 4 specific areas you think, and all of those are quite clear. And I'm sure there's a 5th one that's going to be just as clear that you
When
could
it
follow.
comes up, we'll
Well,
add
yeah,
it.
we'll add it, but it also falls in the spirit of those four, like typos, type of thing that, again, have no change on this event, have no real change, but saves you from sending out this, well, the board hasn't voted on this 2-letter transposition that went by us, as the wrong version of there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, let's just fix that, and,
Exactly.
and so I think those are all fine.
So it was an efficiency move.
Yes.
And I'm big on consistency in
Yep.
formatting, so I did not attach the template, but the template is the one that this one is in and that
Yep.
we've been using. So I did want to just clarify, keep them all looking the same. It's professional, it's easy to follow when the format is the same on everyone.
Yep. And in efficiency, I'm ready to vote on. I don't think this needs a second hearing by us. I think it's fairly straightforward and clear. Someone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the policy.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I think we move on to E, which is not a person.
That's right. E as opposed to D. Yes, and Peg was
Right.
kind enough to put a number of policies together here. I do want to have an opportunity to review them just to make sure they jive with day-to-day operations and how we do things. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to look at all of these, so
Right.
thought was let's get them out there and let's maybe prioritize, which ones I tackle first and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, these, again, as, as the three of us sit here and we are the policy peeps, for the town, it didn't really make much sense to wait for you to get these off your list to do. Some I blatantly will use the word borrowed from other towns on policies that we wanted to look at. So I'm thinking if it works for them, we can probably take a look at it, and other ones. Town council had done some edit for one of them, so I plopped that in there. But it's, between GPT chat, Gemini and Copilot, you mix them up enough and, once we prioritize them, then we can all work on them independently, come back. Whenever these are scheduled, it gets them off your list. It keeps to our promise of keeping 1 or 2 on an agenda here and there. None of these really, interfere with your day-to-day stuff. As I said, if we looked at your project list, these are the ones swinging around on the 90-day, the 60-day, 90-day
Yeah.
lists. So that's why I put them all there and added them up. And of course, when we get to that, there's some that are probably going to be like real quick hits, boop, boop, we can get done. Other ones will take a little bit longer.
I actually put together criteria with that. One is legal compliance risk. So when you're doing in the future, I would think this would, anything with legal or compliance risk goes to the top of the list. Financial risk and stewardship, operational frequency, equity and public facing impact, governance and role clarity, readiness and implementation burden. So the first ones were the TA or evaluation process would be first, donations and gifts acceptance policy would be second, ADA questionnaire would be third, donations procedures process would be fourth, the training document, fundraising policy would be fifth, senior and veterans property tax work-off abatement programs would be 6, remote meeting participation policy would be 7, storage agreement for town-owned items would be 8. I think that's all of them.
There's a few, there's like 11. You might have missed.
Oh, yeah,
one.
there's
I think
there's
that's-
the injured on duty. There's a couple
Okay.
of ones
That
that
would
are
come too,
tasks
Yes,
rather than
but-
policies.
Correct.
Yeah, so those are policies. Also, I did a form for the opioid thing that's a lot more involved
Okay.
than what you had, so
Yep.
we can
Yep, absolutely.
maybe do that.
That's what I figured. You know what? Get them out there.
Yeah.
And they're a straw person, and then we just start picking them apart and, between the three of us.
But if you guys are in agreement with that, sort of that
Yep.
outline.
Yeah.
I can send that over to you, Kristen, as to what the sort of legal ones are always gonna
Mhm.
come first.
Yep.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I
Da,
think
da,
the
da, da.
TA eval, it's funny, I had a very similar list. Fundraising was my first because that is, in my opinion, a very risky one, as are donations. And I had TA eval and remote meeting policy, just because that can get dicey with open meeting law requests. So I did also evaluate them like on liability, basically, same kind of thing,
Yeah.
and those were my top ones.
So I think as long as you're going with some sort of criteria.
And I don't know, maybe in this, based on Lisa's kind of like subfolders, that's where we start to put things in there, so it's a lot easier of, wait a minute, where are you? I gotta scroll down, hang on, that we just go to legal, bump, everything else, bump, bump, bump.
We do have a select board policy folder on the drive that we created last summer. It's called Select Board Policies 2025. And I believe I've shared it with everybody, but let me just make sure.
Now you can whiz it around it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Yep, I've got everybody here. I'm gonna send this back around again. I'll just copy the link and forward it off. And then, yep, I've been putting anything that's finalized in there. Final approved, the policy template is in there, and then this policy review checklist that Lisa had created is in there as well. So what we could add is just a drafts folder and start putting everything in there.
Right, and that's just it, and then obviously, take them down, put edits on your laptop, don't put them back up so that, little OML doesn't come around and yell at any of us, and then when it comes time for the meeting, we all talk about it, we uplift them, and then put them in AI and say, hey, take these three and smush them.
Mhm.
And come out with one magical one.
Yeah, I would say just avoid all three of you making edits on the same document because.
Oh, no, no,
that's-
no, so,
just
no,
as
so
a
we'd all
caveat.
download it and like.
do it
Scott had with
individually?
His scribbles,
Okay,
Yep.
mark it, and then discuss, and then all three of them, once we've discussed it and open, can go back up, and then somebody takes all three and goes magical poof, and
gotcha.
comes
Yep.
back with one, so.
I say that because I actually discovered something new about Google Drive the other day that I didn't know. When you make comments on a document that's in a shared folder, it sends an email out to everybody.
Yeah.
So Scott and I were doing comments back and forth on the agenda, and all of a sudden I got an email about it, and I went, why is that? And
Yeah.
Dee goes, I got an email about it too. And then I realized it was sending it out to
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
so.
So
I
you know, a
learned-
comment was made in a document.
Right,
Yep.
So
but
collaborate on documents.
we don't want to look like we're
Yeah,
deliberating
yeah, right.
outside. of-
That's why we could
Yeah.
download our own copies and we make our
Right.
changes on our own
And
copies.
when I'm working on something, I normally just tell Kristen I'm working on it so that I don't
Yep.
work on the
Yep.
same thing as anybody
Yep.
else or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. That way we don't have folks doing the same thing and, competing,
Mhm.
duplicating efforts rather. But yeah, I think this is great. And I thank you all for contributing to this and helping with this. This is a big, weight off my shoulders, and ultimately it is your policy.
Mhm.
So, once I kind of scan through a couple, we'll get a couple going on each agenda and, get them knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still
There's
several,
more.
that are large. So
Yeah.
I took the low hanging.
Right.
Fruitier ones and pulled them off for quick wins.
No, but I think some of them, not the ones you put in this folder, but there's some policies out there that now I don't think have to come to us. That really the biggest change was put them in the right format, remove select
Yeah,
and make
Yep.
it select board.
Correct.
And that one can be fine and we can focus our
That's
times
why
on.
I
those.
asked that one go on
Yep.
there first, cause I'm
Yep.
like, let's wipe out half of
Yep.
them to start.
Yep,
Yep, and I think attaching the template to it as well, that makes it, and you guys have approved the template, then I will just literally start throwing other ones
Mhm.
in, so that'll make it easier.
and we done on that item?
mhm.
F, the Town Administrator Act discussion, and this is another one that sort of gets back there, but as we've said a couple times, Town Administrator Act was written before we had a town administrator. We've had one for a bit,
Mhm.
we have some experience with it. A chance to talk about it. Kristen has added a couple of things, including one of the things that was, I think, on the goals, which is talk about would the process be to have sort of all the town employees sort of report through her, which I think also, I think allows us to, we can have a conversation that we've had conversations here at the board about Kristen's involvement with independent boards and their staffing and issues. I think it turns out what we thought at the time might be clear instructions, turns out in the end of the day is not clear instructions, and giving us a chance to clarify that to make sure we're on the same page on what her involvement should be with those independent boards and issues that they have. And so whether that's a bunch of places where, is there space you would like to start on that list or?
Sure. So, actually, I'll start where you started, which is, as the town administrator serves as the HR director, I believe, need to find a way to standardize HR across all departments. There's obviously HR involved with boards and committees too. I know some of them are elected. But I think the place to start is, at least when it comes to employees of the town, we have to treat all employees the same and standardize that HR process. So when I reached out to Labor Council, that was my first goal, was how do we go about putting the HR oversight for all in-town employees under the TA, who serves as the HR director under the code. So, you know, with elected boards and committees and employees, it's hard to maintain consistent policies and procedures across all across all employees rather. So I think you're looking at really a comprehensive approach. You need to update the Town Administrator Act, the town's personnel bylaw, and the town's employee policy manual. And there are some inconsistencies between the three of those documents. I think that there are some other policies I would like to see updated in the policy manual that I had brought up when I first arrived. But I think, you know, carryover vacation at 1.5 times can result in carrying over 7 weeks of vacation, and us having to pay that out with a reserve fund transfer is just too much. And then there's some calculations that are funky when it comes to personal, sick, and vacation leave for employees who work different hours and different days. And so that's the standardization that really needs to happen, because it's very hard to say, oh, well, you work in one office, so you work a 9-hour day, you get 9 hours of personal leave. Oh, but you work a 10-hour day, you get 10 hours of it's not following a consistent pattern. So that has been challenging. I also think that just bringing those documents, you know, into alignment, and also just really looking at some of those consistencies. You know, I know we've had some conversations, very preliminary, about the Personnel Committee. With the Town Administrator Act, it does actually render the Personnel Committee as essentially not overall effective, because those responsibilities and duties are delegated to the Town Administrator. So I think we need to have that conversation as well. And I also think that, you know, it's sometimes challenging, now that you have somebody here day to day, to have some of those conversations, you know, with boards and committees when they're not here day to day, and try to reconcile those differences. That can cause some challenges. So those are the big ones. I think also we really have only had a town administrator form of government in practice since 2019, right? I mean, I'm only the second TA. Margaret was the first. Margaret laid an amazing path that I have followed almost to a T, because it was very well outlined and done. But I think there is still some confusion on behalf of long-term employees that we are a town administrator form of government. I mean, if you've worked here for 30 years and you've always gone to the select board, you know, or the personnel committee, that's the way that you're naturally inclined to go, which I understand. And I think maybe some more clarification of the day-to-day duties, you know, and having those conversations too with employees. There's a lot that goes on, especially with personnel. I would say in recent months, personnel matters have taken up about 75% of my time. And I think if we had more consistent policies and practices, and we're able to align better, and everything is streamlined through one point of contact, that would make a huge difference. Also the ATA, which would have a huge focus on human resources as well. So that would free me up to actually do like work. Like the 8 bids I have sitting on my plate that keep me awake at night.
Yeah, I agree. And you have to think that, again, is 6 years where at least one, if not two of them, were not typical operating in 2020 and 2021, when the world behaved differently and suddenly changed, and as we were beginning to get used to those sort of things. I think, at least from my standpoint, I mean, we have a town administrator. The select board is not the arbiter of personnel matters in this town. I think it's quite clear all of those things go through you, and really the only things that really we get involved in is integrity related issues with you. But you know, employee stuff, you know, falls to you. But yes, we can make that clear also in the cleaning of these things up as well.
Those are just some of the
Yeah.
ideas initially to have that conversation. And I did confirm that it would require the legislative special, I'm sorry, the special act would require town meeting vote.
Mhm.
If we wanted to be able to bring personnel for elected board employees under the town administrator, because obviously they don't report to the select
Right.
board. So that would require an adjustment, an amendment, and legislative action.
I think this is another great one if we had a timeline of fall town meeting. I can't, there's no intent to try to pull something this together for May town meeting. We have budget season coming up. There's a lot of other things going on. I think the plan is, you know, in a November-ish town meeting that this, and again, if we put this with talking about, you know, potentially other changes in the way the town operates, we could have a good meeting. I think we'll have citizenry talking about how we
Mhm.
best do this. I think the document you put together, you know, there is that tear. These are independent bodies, independent for a reason. But that it is important, as you point out, for for personnel to be treated similarly across them, have the similar benefits. And, you know, the fear that we've always had is because I don't even want to even say a board X has a vacancy and they write a help wanted ad that is clearly in violation of the law that says we don't want people of type X or type Y on it, which I don't think would happen, but if they did something like that, the town is liable. If an employee acts inappropriately, the town is liable and the bills go to all the taxpayers, and this is why they have to ultimately report through you. Because you have, as it is right now, no formal say over some of these things.
And HR policy, especially in the municipal sector, is very complex.
Yep.
It is not the same as the private sector. It is a completely different animal. You can have a lot of, you know, similar theories about how you go about it, or about what you should do, but how you go about it in the actual process is very different. It just creates a huge liability to not have HR centralized. Trust me, it's not a control issue. I do not want more work. This is a liability for the town, as you just said. And I think when we look at, you know, professionalizing the organization, making sure we're hitting all of those laws, making sure, you know, it presents just openings and canyons for potential lawsuits, if we're not careful in the way we implement it. And I think that there is a disconnect when you're not here day to day. So, and I also just think municipal government is its own ball of wax. It's very unique. It's very different. You can get guidance from boards, but I don't believe that they should be driving day-to-day decisions. That is a real challenge in consistently operating here and treat not even just employees, but consistently operating on the day-to-day. And I know we've had some discussions here where we've gotten into how much do I get involved into, you know, elected departments that elect their own employees. The problem is I see both sides of it because of the way the act is written, but when I'm not able to, you know, basically even not reprimand, but have a, you know, disciplinary discussion with an employee who is a key, essential, vital part of a municipal day-to-day operation because they're hired to by and report to an elected board, that stymies my ability to keep things moving forward. And my responsibility too is to not just protect the town, but to keep operations flowing smoothly. And the way it's kind of chopped up right now makes it hard to do.
Have there been discussions with the Board of Health and, you know, a couple of the other departments on here that this is what we're thinking? Because I don't want them blindsided. I don't want them hearing about it at a town meeting. I don't want them hearing about it, watching one of these meetings.
I mean, we talked about HR in the past, not specifically yet. This was kind of starting to come up with a plan of attack of how we would approach it. And those discussions would need to be had with those boards and committees long prior to town meeting. I mean, right now, there's nothing even drafted to share
Yep.
language wise with
Right.
them. And I do like to have something on paper before we have those conversations, because otherwise it's completely hypothetical and kind of wastes everybody's time.
I understand that, but in the age of unchecked fiction quickly becomes fact. Now that we're talking about this, somebody's gonna hear it they're going to, like in the game of telephone when we were all little. Scott's shirt is no longer purple. Scott's shirt is, aqua green. Oh my God, she just said that. So if anything, maybe you can't have a discussion in depth, but I would have an initial discussion of, hey, this is what we're thinking. I'd rather have you hear it from me than you come charging into my office because you're totally
Well-
honked off.
Well, again, though. We're doing this because the select board, this is not Kristen doing this, it's the select board doing this. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
should the select board be reaching out to some of these boards saying that we're trying to start doing this?
Maybe.
Because again, this is,
I think there's nothing, I don't think we have anything to say yet
Right.
because we have nothing to show them.
right,
I think it is our job to look at
Mhm.
how the town is run and try to keep on the side of legal and all of these other things. And this is part of our job to, start these discussions and move them forward. So you bring the interested parties in once you've sorted yourself out. I think often we bring folks in too early,
Mhm.
before we have ourselves sorted.
mhm,
And we can't relay information appropriately if we don't even have ourselves sorted.
All right, but just keep that in mind
Yeah.
that this is now gonna be
And
fact and about.
by all means, Kristen, if you are getting flack about things that we are discussing here, send them our way.
No, I'm happy to, have those conversations. I do try to address things as they come up, and I certainly don't want to catch people off guard, but we certainly have been having, personnel conversations
Mhm.
with the elected, boards since
I
day
don't,
one that I arrived.
I don't
Everyone
think
quit at
anybody's gonna
transfer
be,
station.
Right.
anybody's gonna be surprised that we need to have this conversation.
right.
I really don't.
There are 4 elected bodies that have personnel, correct? So you have assessors, you have Board of Health, you
Town
have
clerk.
library board, you have town clerk. Cemetery.
We
has
have a
that.
contract with the cemetery, superintendent, and that's a contract that goes through the town administrator.
Okay, so that one's fine.
And
Right.
CPA has an employee.
They're not elected though.
Oh, right.
But they're kind of independent because
Mm.
they
Yeah.
have their own funding, but yes, you're right. See, that's where we get
Right,
into challenges.
right,
And if the housing trust were ever to hire an employee, how do we
Right.
handle that?
conservation,
The conservation agent reports to the town administrator.
right, so where there's really a sort of half-time, part-time, one person, less than one person. It's generally already been doing that, so now we're just trying to figure out the bigger and messier
Yeah.
departments.
And
when you
I
have a whole-
know if it were me and I was an elected,
Right.
I wouldn't want to be in charge of HR for
No, and in
anybody.
fact, where we've had HR problems in some of these areas, the town administrator has been involved, and so even though there's not
I've
a,
had to.
they've had to, and the board has asked for it even in some of those
They
cases.
have
Yeah,
asked for,
yeah.
and I think though, the challenge sometimes is if something is festering and it's not somebody who's watching it day to
Right.
day,
Yep,
Yeah.
it doesn't come my way until it's exploded.
right. Right,
So how do
it- yep.
how do we get from here to there? How do we get from, are you going to work on that? Do you want others to, how do you wish us to proceed?
I like the idea of if you had perhaps a representative from the board designated to have some of these conversations with the elected board. I like to do elected to elected, appointed to appointed. I think that's why the superintendent and I have the conversation and then we disseminate it out to our respective committees. I think that, while I agree, that some of these things really need to happen and changes need to happen. It's not just coming from me. I think it's coming from inconsistencies and issues that the select board has seen as well. And I'm certainly, like I said, I'm not trying to step on toes. I don't want to take on more workload, but when I have, 3 out of 8 or 9 departments that can operate completely independently, it's a real challenge.
I think it causes more workload,
Mhm.
frankly, to have the chaos than it would to have it consolidated under the appropriate envelope.
Agreed. So I don't know if the board wants to designate a person to specific boards, one person to talk to all of them. It
Do
would
we already
be
have
helpful.
liaisons to?
We-
Not to
Not to
these.
Not to
these
these because they're elected. I liked that idea, though. I did bring that up the last time we set the liaisons, that we should have liaisons, I think, to elected boards, just to
do.
report back.
Sort of.
For you
Did we add some?
yourself,
I have Board of
Oh,
Assessors.
we did add them. You're right. I'm
we
sorry.
did add them.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'll work.
We
with
hadn't before.
Right.
That was, I
Yep.
pushed through that. I guess I won that one and I forgot.
I don't think we did the library board for some reason.
No,
Well, if you have assessors and
That's
you
true.
have
And I have a
Uh,
sense of, yeah, Board of Health. You
I'll
want to
take
take
library.
Sure. And the clerk's a special one because the clerk is both the elected body and the
And
employee,
employee.
so. that-
And
that-
appoints all of the
that-
employees
Right,
in the
right,
office.
right.
Or hires.
Yep.
And you
Um,
just want us to sort of feel out their
Yeah.
thoughts on
well,
consolidating HR?
yeah, their worries, their hopes. I mean, I think we're not looking for language feedback at
Right.
this point, but again, worries and hopes, I think. So you put it as pros and cons, but like, boy, this would really, if this could be taken care of the town administrator, this would be great, and this is my fear if it happens, so that we can try to maximize the benefits and minimize the concerns.
And I think too, that we're talking HR, right?
Yep.
We're not talking policy decisions. We're not
Right.
talking decisions over
Well,
permits
you
or
Cannot take those away.
No.
They are
statutorily we
legislative.
cannot, correct.
Right,
So I really, but really, in my experience, the way that things run best is when you have all employees report to the town administrator or a town manager, unless you have one independently elected employee. But I am used to actually having elected boards where those employees still report to the town administrator. And the town administrator does the hiring and recommends to the select board. So I think if there's a way to split it off, like I want no business in day-to-day operations of the Board of Health, the Board of Assessors. I literally just want to be able to handle personnel matters effectively as they come up and treat
Right.
everybody the same.
Well, and in that case, again, if we stop for talking about, if we think of the benefits, an employee has a place where they can turn when sums are small too, will help potentially staff turnover issues, and other things like
They don't
that.
feel like
So,
they're floating kind of
Right,
out on an
yeah.
island out there. And that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to support the department heads and they're, and most of them are wonderful and they come to me anyways. And I want to be able to feel like they have that support. They know that they have that support. And there have been times when I've had to kind of step back and say, you don't have the ability to do that. You're going to really have to talk to your board. And when somebody's here every day, that kind of leaves them out on an island.
Yeah.
So it's a little challenging.
Um,
That was all I had to say
no,
about it.
well, and so if we transition into, sort of just talking about then your role with some of these, like before we write some of the stuff, like in today's day-to-day, where, I think we, came to an agreement that might need some adjusting of that these independent boards are independent, and so they get to take care of their own problems. Where could we do potentially some better instructions where my fear that you spend all of your time supporting these independent boards and not getting your statutorial stuff done, but still trying to stop problems when they are smaller before they get bigger.
That's where honestly the staffing needs to be added to the office.
Right.
Yeah.
And so where there are issues this coming week, because as you say, they happen all the time. How do we give clarity where you're not stuck between I'm trying to find delicate ways of saying that the three of us have different opinions of where that line is, and how do we make sure that it is clear between the three of us where that line is,
Yeah, I think
and that you don't accidentally piss one of us off because,
this is constituent
yeah,
services,
Right,
basically.
yep.
How you handle constituent services when it's to do with another board or
yep,
committee.
yep,
I guess fundamentally, I believe that it's sort of a common sense thing where you can provide information, send them and make the connection to the person who they need to talk to rather than you. That would be sort of
Mhm.
my feel on it. You don't need to, you obviously can't tell the assessors or the Board of Health or whoever what to do, but you could direct and be helpful.
Right, and always happy to be helpful. I think where some of the concern has come up has been like when there's a legal matter or there's a liability issue, like at what point do I get involved? Do I bring town council in because I'm concerned and I need to be able to protect the town? And I know and people have different opinions. I totally get that. I think I need to also do a better job of bringing more things before the board for a vote because you are three independent thinkers, right? You're not all going to agree on everything, but I have gotten some individual direction that is conflicting. And so I think I need to do a better job of bringing those issues forward. And one of them has been, how involved do I get with departments that have report to elected
Right.
officials?
And day-to-day informational, like if something comes up, it goes to the chair, I believe.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah,
would
we-
call whoever is chair at the time and, they sort of have to make the call because we're not in a meeting. but you should feel like you can do that.
Mhm.
Um,
And we do, I think, my opinion is not necessarily always that that you folks want to go. And so I, in some respects, want to have some of this stuff so that I can separate sometimes my own personal view on that, on which something is really, I think, reflective of the board. My
Do we need a
worry,
written thing or do we need it? What do we need? What do we need to make you feel more comfortable in that area?
I think we're close to it at the moment. My fear is that some of these side boards become a majority of your job and that there are time sinks between a constituent and the board who don't like each other for some reason. And that you spend your entire time with 3 people in town on an independent board that is not the select board. And so referrals and making introductions, I am 100% fine for. Helping a board recognize they have a legal issue and connecting them appropriately with legal, I am fine. The sitting down with an hour every day with an upset person because they don't like what board X is doing, and you spend 10 hours a week on 2 people on something that is not a select board thing is what I desperately want to stop.
And I have gotten that since
Yep.
day one, and I've
Yep.
been pushing back on it more because the direction I had gotten, at least
Yep.
from past board members, was don't intervene. And I think the challenge comes when a board has said something and then the constituent comes to me
Right.
and wants me to trump what a board, or take up something because they don't feel it was handled the right way. And that's
Mhm.
where it's like, well, I can certainly speak to the department head, but I have no jurisdiction legally under the TA Act. I think we need to spell it out more because I do think the board has had differing opinions. Like, I don't want to speak on behalf of a department, but when we're getting into a legal matter, I kind of need to be able to do that too. And so there's a balance there that I'm lacking some guidance from the board, and also the TA Act doesn't make it clear. And I think some board members have differing opinions on the level of involvement that I should get into with elected boards and departments. And that's okay, but I think we need to come to a consensus as a group.
Do we need a guideline or a policy until we sort the TA Act? What do we need
That's
to-
not a bad idea. But I don't know how much I can actually implement a policy. My thought of it was just, I have to stay out of issues if the department head and the elected board have already made a decision. It's not my jurisdiction or my place right now to try to intercept and have a meeting with that constituent who is unhappy with that outcome. And if it's an HR issue, even right now, if it's a policy decision or a whatever kind of decision, I will never have jurisdiction, right?
Right.
But if it's I don't like the way X handled this and the
Right.
way they talked to me or treated me or whatever, that's where I run into a challenge sometimes. And it's been made very clear to me by the board not to overstep and not to step on independent elected bodies. And so I kind of need to know a little bit more of where that line is and where that line gets drawn.
I think we need to look at how to frame it probably from what our statutory duties are also.
Mhm.
And I think the legal bit comes under the select board, does it not? I don't have
It-
enough information, but I think we
Yeah.
also need to frame it from that standpoint where even though my supposition is that even though these are elected bodies, that there's an overarching statutory thing that falls under the role of the select board, but maybe I'm wrong, but that,
I've looked for things like that and I've not found
Okay.
anything along those lines. That
Nothing-
they are really,
it's
Quite
very,
independent, yep.
very, okay.
that they're not, their existence comes from state law, not
Yeah.
from our town bylaws. So it's not like the town bylaws said,
Oh, I know.
you know,
I'm
that
just-
this is the library board and this is what they're.
No, oh, I know,
they're-
but the select board does have very specific things that like when I was talking about, like
Right.
capital falls under us, like, so even, I believe even if
Right.
the assessors did a capital project for some bizarre reason, or Board of Health did a capital project, I think
Right.
we still statutorily have control over capital projects.
Right, if they
So
had-
there may be something from a legality, like
Hmm.
overarching, I'm wondering if there's an overarching. The select board is responsible for the legal health of the town or something like that. I don't know. I am spitballing.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
legal is a big part of it. So you've got a human resource matter, you've got a legal matter, and then you also have this affects everybody in the town matter. Those are the
Yeah.
3 areas that I see as a challenge, right? And one of them
Yeah.
we've talked about.
So let's
Here.
define what you
So-
can actually do based on our first.
I don't think I have a super problem with spending time in some of those areas. Again, this is, I think the area that I want to avoid is the area where you feel the most clarity on is someone doesn't like a decision that an independent body has made. So let's go a little bit further down that. Someone has a question about the process to question the decision an independent body has made. I don't want to use examples that are fake examples because people, as you say, they'll become real examples. I was in my brain trying to think of like even make up a board name, but
How about someone threatens a lawsuit? That's very generic. The minute someone threatens a
Right, right.
lawsuit, I have to get
yeah,
involved.
I agree with that. And I think so the starting is constituent services, I am adding a shed onto my building, what's the process? And you can say, oh, you have to talk to the building commissioner, which is not an
Yep.
independent body, but is at least a more realistic sort of thing. And the process to do X is this, and answering that sort of question. And you can either answer yourself, or if that department has a staff person who can answer that simple.
Right. I either
Uh,
refer or I
yeah,
answer,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the constituent services
Yeah.
part I think you're talking
Yeah.
about, because I really try to be
Yeah.
customer service friendly on that. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
leave somebody high and dry. I think it's more when they don't like something that's been
Right.
said and they think that I'm like an appeals process,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like I'm the next step in the process.
And they are not. And I worry
Right,
that the explaining or not the appeals process is where we spend both a bunch of time
Yeah.
and where those people then come to us going,
They're
Kristen wasn't
frustrated.
very
Mhm.
customer friendly because she told me that she's not the appeals process, the ZBA ruled, that I can't have my septic system and I want that overturned. And
Correct,
you're like, but the ZBA is an independent body and they made their decision
right.
and
And that is a
Sorry.
great example, and
Yeah.
you can put it on me, right? Because in every job I've ever had, my highest marks have always been in customer service, and here they've been my lowest. And I think part of it is this structural issue of who reports where and does what and what things. It makes me look like when I have to say no, that
Right.
I'm being unfriendly or unhelpful.
Well, which goes back to not being familiar with the town administrator processes. Before, we were all independent bodies and all the elected people were all over town and you talked to the whatever body was. And that some people, I think, believe the other side of we have a town administrator, which means that you're responsible for everything.
Right.
Which is one of the things we want to fix, is at least give a little bit more responsibility. So when, I think this employee of an independent body did something discriminatory against me, then you can step in a little bit more, one, because you supervise the person and can have that conversation. But two, that has something that is the gray area. They're not threatening any sort of lawsuit, but it could become one relatively fast if you didn't fix things quickly,
And if something does become a legal matter,
Right.
obviously I'm going to work with that department head, and the department head works with their board. But communication on legal matters, I believe, should come from the town administrator's office, because no
Yep.
one is authorized to use legal according to your policy.
So we all agree on that, right?
Yes, I think we all agree
We
on
all
that.
agree on that.
Okay,
I think we agree on the constituent services side.
Okay.
What else do we all agree on? Was there? something- was
I
there
think
something else?
the purchasing stuff, I
Mhm.
think if they have a procurement
Yep.
issue, and I think you're already doing it, the Board of Health, and I can give examples on this one, because the Board of Health needs to do something for the capping of whatever the Department of Public, or the DEP really wants. They're not gonna write that procurement and manage that procurement. That procurement process is likely to be done through the select board office.
well, but here's a great example. I have been finding, as I've gone through warrants and things,
Right.
that there are contracts that have been entered into that aren't using the town's standard contract form.
Right,
And see, those are where you get into the little bit of a grayer area, because that's a procurement issue, that's a legal issue. But they're allowed to essentially hire and fire any contractors and employees that they want.
Right.
So this is where I think this would really solve the problem. If you have all of the town employees report to the town administrator, unless one
Yep.
is specifically elected themselves,
Right.
which I get is a different scenario. The boards can remain elected. They have their own independent powers and authority, but my professional opinion is employees should report
Yep.
to one person.
yeah, and I thought one of the ways that when was first looked at this is that we write things that we say that we will provide, you know, the town administrator will provide, you know, 25 hours a week of professional staffing to this board. And that whether that's, you know, 2 part-time peoples or 1 full-time, in other words, that part of it is to make sure that they're adequately staffed, at least according from the budget, but
Mhm.
that the person is really hired and fired by the town administrator.
Right, and then there's standardization and processes, right? Because I'm finding procurement is my other biggest struggle, that it hasn't been followed always, and it's not intentional, people just didn't know. And if I don't have time to track down every
No.
contract from every department and say, are you doing this properly? But if I had an employee who reported to me,
Yep.
I could ensure that everyone's trained in a standardized way.
It occurs to me as we're doing warrants, we probably make that problem worse ourselves by doing this warrant saying, we've given the Conservation Commission $50,000 to build a new fence at their selling, as opposed to at the discretion of the select board or something like that, that forces the procurement, or at least says at the discretion of the, as run through the standard town procurement process. We just add the right wording to it to make it clear that they're not doing it on their own. They have to do it through the town administrator's office.
Well, and one way to stop that is special articles are never sponsored.
Right.
They all go through the town administrator's office,
Right.
both capital and,
Yep.
both special articles and capital articles. And I've always seen those funneled
Yep.
through. That way you have your checks and balances
Yep.
on procurement, contracts, hiring, whatever you need to do.
Yeah. That it's spent, you know, we'll figure out the wording of that. I don't want to wordsmith that.
But yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
don't have to have articles sponsored, but I think
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
actually make a stronger point to say, great, you need XYZ, you know, at your location, that's fine, but that's going to be a select board article that is sponsored, managed, and run through the town administrator as they are charged with day to day.
Yep. Let's fix that wording for this year's article warrant.
But I think that would be useful. And this is really helpful in general because some of these things are sort of nebulous and they're kind of esoteric, if you will, right? So like having the conversation, like I can't tell you exactly always why something isn't working. I can just say it's not working. And it's really helpful to have multiple
Yep.
heads kind of have this conversation and come up with ways that we can make things better.
Do you believe we've made it a little bit clearer?
I do, and I will do a better job, like I said, of when I think there is a gray area of bringing it forth and asking for a vote. We've been very informal in a lot of ways as a board here, which I like because I'm more of an informal person, but when it comes to motions and processes, I think we probably need to take more votes.
You were gonna say, Lisa?
Just, the select board is the chief executive authority of the town unless authority is expressly delegated. Just because employees are reporting to elected non-employees, that does not mean those boards operate outside townwide legal, HR, or procurement controls. So I think there is some statutory, because we are the executive body of the town, some of those things really do fall under.
Well, and aren't the areas I'm most concerned about. I agree that HR, procurement,
Mhm.
legal
Legal.
all belong with Kristen and should be involved in
Right.
those. It is again, the citizen complaints about an independent body decision-making
Yeah,
that
and that's different.
that even we don't have any control over.
no, I mean, we can't.
Right.
Right, I think, and we can spell that out maybe more clearly when we do the TA Act amendment, and
Yep.
that'll help not only from a reference place, like, hey, it's right here, but also you'll have the discussion at town meeting. So, and typically the movers and shakers and the people that are involved in town government are at town meeting. So I think that awareness can be there too. I think it's a good opportunity to have the conversation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is still, it's the growing pains of having a new TA form of government. We are still suffering those and we will continue to suffer those for a little while yet.
Well, I think the real issue is that people don't like a decision and they're going to continue to whine until they can get enough people on their side. I mean, call it what it is, and that's
Yeah.
it's exactly what it is. It's not so much that we have our second TA, it's, I don't like the decision, so I'm just gonna call and I'm gonna complain and I'm gonna sit in your office for 4 hours, and too bad we hired you and I pay your salary, so suck it up and listen to me. How's that sound?
Well,
Does
and
it sound like I've
and-
been
well-
eavesdropping
It's not your
outside your
job
door?
no, no.
Sounds like I
but-
need a second noise machine outside my door.
No, but it is
Um,
also at some point, these are
So-
office hours where you take people to drop in, and here are non-office hours where
Yeah.
you're actually trying to get procurement and other stuff done.
Yeah,
Cause and I, maybe of the three of us, am the meanest to people who reach out and where I'm like, you know, sorry, this is not a select board, this is not a select board thing. If you have a problem with this other body, take it to the other body, you know, and if you really have a problem, get someone in your friend circle to run for one of those positions and change the way they operate.
and I think all of us too do have an understanding that Kristen does not have an open door policy per se.
I
She
think I
cannot-
have had
she
one, but I
cannot-
can't continue.
She cannot have an open door policy. Please make an appointment if you need to talk to Kristen.
Right.
and-
People get very miffed by that, by the way. I have people, you know, I didn't respond to an email in a day and they're physically up here and, well, why can't I speak? I mean, Dee deals with this constantly as my filter, you know, for folks and trying to allow me to be able to do some work. But it is really, I didn't get the answer I wanted fast enough or in the format that I wanted, so I need to speak with someone now. And I think maybe in the past that has worked, but given our amplified workload and volume, we really need to make appointments. And some people really put off
Right.
by that.
Right, you can't get the procurement done by being interrupted every 10 minutes by calls and people stopping in.
And that's how it's been for 3.5 years.
Yes.
And,
I'm not gonna
you
lie.
know, it might make sense to have some formal office hours, but
Yeah.
overall, it is always gonna be better to make an appointment.
We have to, it's changed, right? And this is the growing pains part that you're talking about too. And in the days when you could just walk in and speak to an independent board or committee or department, that the people were there and people were working more in silos, right? But now we have a coordinated effort. It's a team effort. There needs to be one main point of contact, but I can't always be stopping everything that I'm doing at that moment.
Oh, we also at one point had 900 people in town and not 3,000 people in town.
We have grown not only in size of population, but in workload and state regulations, and we haven't kept up with the employees. And I
Mhm.
think that's where the burnout's coming from that and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about with other employees. You know, and I feel like I need to shoulder a lot of that because I don't want to lose people. And at some point, something has to give because it can't all happen with two people in most offices. So. Well, we'll get there. I think this is a really good start and I really appreciate the conversation and the openness and, you know, the discussion because my job is to do what's best for the greatest number of people. And that's what I will always say. And there, you know, unfortunately, when folks have done things the wrong way for so many years and there's never been a consequence for it, they've never gotten caught, they feel like I'm just being an obstacle to progress when I say, I'm sorry, you have to do it this way.
Right.
And it's really just me keeping the town out of trouble.
Right.
Is what it comes down to. I don't like the stuff
Yeah.
either, but it is what it is.
You've been speeding down Pleasant Street for the last 20 years and an officer stops you now, it's still good for the officer to stop you and you should still get in trouble for it. Just because you've been doing something wrong for a long time doesn't mean you have the right to continue to do something wrong.
Correct.
I use that as an example, but I'm pretty sure there's people who speed down Pleasant Street, right?
Of course.
Well, and it is my job. I'm not gonna put my
Yep.
professional
Yep.
career on the line to let people slide just because they get a little edgy and they go to a select board member because they don't like the decision that I made when I'm just following Mass General Law.
Yep,
Have they met the three of us?
right. Right, I tell people all the
Seriously,
time that
we're
like,
all forces individually,
Right.
put the three of us in a room.
right. And we tend to disagree more on how to get from point A to point B than actually that point B needs to be gotten to.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel that backing and I really appreciate it. It's what I need. But when you talk about the rumor mill and the
Yep.
nonsense, I mean, a lot of it is literally coming from the fact
Okay.
that I'm a rule follower. And so I can guarantee you, if I'm telling you to do something, it's because there's a rule there. It's not because I want to ruin your day.
We all do the best we can do, and there will be people who are unhappy.
Yeah, always.
And you
Oh,
can,
wow.
yeah, so let it.
Except
Yep.
Peg's always happy.
No.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the discussion very much.
Last one.
Board questions and liaison updates. Do people have updates?
The RFP for the housing trust should be ready to come
Nice.
here
Nice.
next time,
Have it
hopefully.
on.
It'll be, Kristen and Dee are looking at it. The trust will look at it tomorrow, Wednesday night. So trying to move that forward as quickly as we can, given all of the colossal amount of paperwork and coordination it's gonna take. the strategic planning meeting for the school. I did write something up or summarize the information for you, Peg, because I know you were interested. So we did the data the last time
Nice.
and, okay, so as part of the regional school district strategic planning process, we reviewed survey data from students, parents, staff, and community members. Overall, the data showed a strong relationship-based school culture. Teachers, counselors, and staff are consistently identified as this district's greatest strength. At the same time, the data points to areas of strain as needs increase, particularly around access to counseling and student supports, consistency in students' sense of belonging, opportunities for student voice, and clearer communication with families and the broader community. These findings are now being used to shape the long-term priorities in the strategic plan, not specific actions yet, but the core areas the district needs to focus on going forward. So sort of all of this stuff is happening and then it will coalesce into a document.
Great.
And then the clock chime, did I tell you guys about the clock chime?
Mhm.
Okay, so CPA wanted that. The numbers for that are about 10 grand over what the
Mhm.
initial cost was. The church owns the bell. So we would need another agreement with the church about using the bell. I reached out to Stan and the steeplejack to get set numbers on those. And we'll have those shortly and information on that shortly. And that was pretty much what I have.
You got the update on energy from Kristen. There is a meeting in a couple weeks with Weston Sampson and National Grid and the energy folks, just kind of see what's in the pipeline and see where we can be helped. There wasn't a meeting with Concom. The chair was sick. Rec canceled their meeting. I know that there are 3 deliverables on their plate. The first one being the job description, which I am told was approved. In an email, I reminded them that it needs to go to Kristen and also needs to go to personnel. Request for a meeting to review it. The second one is the pavilion. I know that there's missing information. There was an ask to find out what that was and get that done. And then the third one was the playground policy, where I may or may not have hinted that Lisa would be available to help with the proposal since she drafted it. You know, for that, and reminded them that we have a February 9th deadline to have that information. I gently hinted that they may want to reorganize their meeting because they're not meeting until after hours. So if they're not meeting until the 11th or 12th, and we meet on the 9th, might be a wee bit little too late, but email was sent, you were copied, so no one can say, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help revise
know.
the scope if they need help, they just need to reach out.
And I haven't gotten anything yet about the job description, but I have had to stop constantly following up with people because at some point I don't have the time and it's other things are suffering for when directions have been given and they're not being followed.
And then that's the whole part of it,
Yeah.
is that they've been told. They've been told again. They've been told again. And I'm done.
Yep.
So if everything shows up all pretty and nicely packaged, sweet, and we make whatever decisions we need to. It doesn't show up and we make whatever decisions we need to, because I also put in there regarding the pavilion. I don't know what CPA is doing for their funding. I know that with some groups, they've clawed the money back because people have sat on it and not done anything with it. So that's a CPA decision for them. I suggested they might want to reach out to them. Don't know, but as their liaison, I have done what I can. I cannot do the work for them.
And I think, you know, for me, we get to that place where there are other priorities that end up taking front stage because or center stage, because I've given the direction of what needs to be done. That's not being followed. I'm here. We all know, we'll meet with anybody at any time. Although I'm trying to fix that. But no, I mean, I'm literally here and I'm saying, this is what we need. You're telling me this is what we need. This is what we need. But I mean, you know, I just don't want to hear that it's because of me or that I'm not available, because that's a very convenient excuse for people to use, and I'm frankly tired of it.
It is, but with our updates that are provided and, I mean, and I can speak, and if somebody challenges, I can whip out that email faster than anything and show them, but that's part of your thing too, Kristen, is that you need to stop following up.
Right.
If you've asked and you've given me a date and that date has come and gone, oh, well, you go to the bottom of the list, and you know what, if I can get to you in the next 6 weeks, sweet, and if not, I'm not even terribly sorry.
Yeah, and I'm putting more in writing because I have to keep a paper chain on this because there are inconsistencies in the stories that don't line up.
That's it. Easy peasy.
We do have an executive session tonight. We actually have a fairly busy executive session. The board will enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the town administrator, and to discuss strategy related to litigation, police union, and Purpose 3, discuss strategy related to collective bargaining, highway and fire EMS unions. Is there, I think this has to be a roll call vote too.
You also
think
need to
we're coming
declare,
Oh.
yeah, you need
We're
to
not coming back.
declare that it affects the negotiating position. of the-
Oh, and it
Yeah,
affects the negotiation position of the town.
the chair.
Because I so declare. We're going to adjourn from executive session, or we will open
not
the door
return
to it.
open session.
We'll not return to recordings here, but we will open the door for 5 seconds to record. We have to, okay, we're going to adjourn from executive session.
Why do we always have trouble with this?
We
I don't
get-
know.
we get, well,
Consistently.
because it changes, the rule to me changes
It
like
does,
every,
it does, and people do it differently. But you
Um,
need to take a roll
but
call.
we need to call a roll call vote.
did you make the
Waisaki.
motion? Did someone second it?
I made the motion
Okay, we need a second.
Second,
there.
Okay. Waisaki, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
Stone Eye.
Okay, thank you.
Hiya, Susie.
Clerk also have unemployed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but yes.
Oh, come on, do you want to switch? What? Do you want to switch?
Which one?
Switch, do the town clerk thing.
Oh,
I'm
Switch
leaving
what?
the webinar
Oh,
now.
oh, you're leaving. Okay, do I have to sign off? 'Cause I'm-
yourself?
Well, you made me co-host, so when I said,
Anybody.
I think I ended it for everybody,
If
Kristen,
anybody's
but.
email that just says,
What do you mean chicken?